Every morning, I take my grandson to the station to see my son off to work. But that day, my 5-year-old grandson whispered to me, "Grandma, we can't go home anymore. Last night I heard Mom talking about us." Terrified, we hid and watched the house. What we saw, I'm glad you're here. If you're watching this video, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're listening to my story of revenge from. I want to know how far it has reached. Union Station was noisy, as always. The announcer's voice boomed from time to time, blending with people's laughter and conversations and the screech of wheels on the rails. Michael, my son, gave Leo, my grandson, one last hug and quickly hopped onto the train. Through the window pane, he waved goodbye, his voice rising above the racket. "Mom, take good care of yourself and please keep an eye on the kid for me." I nodded, squeezing Leo's hand, trying to push down that empty feeling that washed over me every time I watched my son leave to start another work trip. I'd lost count of how many times I'd said goodbye to him like this, but I could never get used to the distance. When the train's silhouette vanished at the end of the tracks, I turned around and started walking home with Leo. The boy walked slowly, his head down, as if he were lost in thought. We had barely taken a few steps when he suddenly grabbed onto my blouse, his little hand trembling. "Grandma," Leo whispered, his voice so quiet I had to bend down to hear him properly. "We can't go back to the house. Last night I heard my mom talking about us." I felt my heart stop. I stopped in the middle of the sidewalk and knelt down to look directly into his frightened eyes. "What did you hear, sweetie?" "Tell your grandma," I asked, trying my best to stay calm, though inside a storm was raging. Leo pressed his lips together, his little eyes shining as if he were about to cry. "She was telling someone on the phone that you were going to have an accident, that you were going to fall down the stairs after signing a paper." And then they laughed. "They said the house would belong to her and some man." I heard it really clearly, Grandma. Leo's words were like a stab to the chest. I hugged him tight, feeling his small body tremble in my arms. "Don't you worry, my love. Your grandma's here," I whispered, though I wasn't sure if I was trying to calm him or myself. The house, the place where I had lived my whole life, where Michael grew up, where Leo was born, suddenly felt like a strange and dangerous place. I stood up, took his hand firmly, and tried to walk as if nothing was wrong. But every step felt incredibly heavy. Just as we were about to reach the house, a bad feeling made me stop in my tracks. I pulled Leo behind some thick bushes in front of the gate, my heart pounding a mile a minute. "Grandma, why aren't we going in?" Leo asked, his voice filled with anxiety. I gestured for him to be quiet. Through the living room window, I saw Amelia, my daughter-in-law, pacing back and forth, the phone glued to her ear. She looked tense, her shoulders rising and falling with each ragged breath. Every so often, she would glance toward the stairs and stare at them for a few seconds, with an obsessive look as if she were imagining something terrible. On the table sat a thick, dark blue folder. As she talked, Amelia kept looking at it, as if it were the most valuable object in the house. Leo pointed at it discreetly and whispered, "That folder. Last night, my mom had that when she was talking too, Grandma." I stayed silent, squeezing his little hand, feeling cold sweat drench my palm. Instead of going in, I walked around the house with Leo, leading him to the backyard, pretending we were still on our walk. "Grandma, where are we going?" he asked, the fear still in his eyes. "Just for a little longer walk, sweetie." "Don't worry," I replied, but my trembling voice gave away my confusion. Just a few hours earlier, I had carefully helped Leo put on his favorite green wool sweater. His big, round eyes looked up at me, clear, but with a shadow of worry that I didn't understand at the time. "Are you still cold, Leo?" I asked as I zipped up his backpack after putting a small milk carton inside. Leo just shook his head, his lips pressed tight as if he were keeping a secret. I smiled and ruffled his hair, trying to calm the unease that was starting to bubble up inside me. Michael was rushing around the living room. He was pacing, a briefcase in one hand and adjusting a worn-out gray tie with the other. "Mom, I'm leaving now. This trip is probably going to be several weeks," he said, as he bent down to kiss Leo's forehead. "Dad will call you every night, okay, champ?" Michael smiled, but I saw the exhaustion in his eyes. The construction job, so far away, was draining him, but he kept going for his family, for Leo, and for Amelia too. I took Leo's hand and we left the house quietly. The street, our same old street, was still half asleep. Only a few neighbors were busy opening their stalls. Rosa, the lady who sells tamales on the corner, waved at us. "Mary, out for a walk with the little one so early?" I smiled back, but I felt anything but calm. There was something in the air that morning that made me uneasy, like when you know a storm is coming but you don't know when it's going to hit. And now Leo's words and what I had just seen confirmed my worries were justified. That afternoon, the sun streamed through the window, painting bright patches on the floor. I was sitting in my old wooden chair, my bony hands clutching the cup of hot tea Amelia had just made for me. The steam rose in spirals with a soft, minty scent, but not even that could calm the storm inside me. Amelia sat across from me, a strangely radiant smile on her lips and a sparkle in her eyes that seemed to be hiding something. I looked at her, the daughter-in-law I once loved like my own daughter, and wondered, when did her smile become so alien? She pushed the dark blue folder towards me, her voice as soft as a breeze. "Mom, Michael wants you to put the house in his name to make some business deals easier. I already prepared everything, you just need to sign." Her words were sweet, but I could sense an urgency she couldn't quite hide. Her hand tapped softly on the table, as if she were counting every second, waiting for my answer. I took the folder. It felt heavy in my hands, as if it carried the weight of all the secrets it held. I flipped through a couple of pages, filled with tiny lawyer-speak and red stamps. I didn't understand any of the dry terms, but my mother's and grandmother's intuition told me this was no simple administrative procedure. Leo's whisper from that morning echoed in my ears. "You were going to fall down the stairs after signing a paper." A chill ran down my spine, as if a bucket of ice water had been dumped on me. Amelia let out a little laugh, her voice still as sweet poison. "It's just paperwork, Mom. You don't need to read it in so much detail. Michael trusted me to take care of everything." She tilted her head, her smile widening, but I noticed her eyes weren't smiling. It was the look of someone worried, someone trying to hide something. Calmly, I placed the folder back on the table, trying to keep my voice steady. "Let me talk to Michael about it first. Signing over the house is a big deal, honey." Amelia's smile vanished instantly, as if someone had flipped a switch. She got nervous, quickly clasping her hands and biting her nails until they were red. "Yes, Michael also said there was no rush, that you should take your time," she replied, her voice a bit shaky, as if she'd been caught in a lie. I nodded, pretending not to notice the contradiction. Just that morning, through the window, I had seen her telling someone on the phone that this had to be done as soon as possible. That phrase, along with her obsessive stare at the stairs, made it impossible not to be suspicious. Amelia quickly got up and poured me more tea, so fast that a few drops splashed out. "Don't you worry, Mom. This is all for Michael's own good," she said, forcing a smile that couldn't hide her nervousness this time. I nodded, playing along, but inside, I had already decided not to fall for her game. "Yes, I know, honey," I replied softly, but my mind was racing, trying to find a way out of this situation without her suspecting anything. I made an excuse that I needed to go to the market for dinner supplies, put on a light sweater, and left. As I walked past Amelia, I felt her eyes fixed on my back, as if she were trying to read my mind. When I walked out the gate, I glanced back. Through the window, Amelia was still there, clutching the folder to her chest like a treasure she was afraid someone would steal. That image broke my heart. This house, where I'd lived my whole life, where Michael played as a child, where Leo was born, had suddenly become the center of a plot I still couldn't fully comprehend. I walked quickly down the familiar street, but this time I wasn't heading to the market. I needed space to think, to sort through the jumbled pieces in my head. Every step was a beat of my heart, filled with worry and rage. Amelia, the daughter-in-law I had loved and trusted, now felt like a stranger. I remembered the first days she came to the house, her radiant smile as we cooked together, the way she would hug Leo and sing him to sleep. All of that now seemed like a distant dream, replaced by a cold gaze and a fake smile. I stopped at a park bench, sat down, and let out a long sigh. The afternoon wind blew, carrying the scent of nearby eucalyptus trees. I closed my eyes, trying to get everything straight. Leo's words, Amelia's look, the mysterious folder. It was all a puzzle I had to solve. But what hurt the most was the thought that my family, the most precious thing in my life, was in danger of falling apart. Michael working far away, blindly trusting the woman he loved. Leo, my little grandson, having to witness things an 8-year-old should never even know about. And me, at 70, instead of enjoying my old age in peace, I had to confront a dark secret in my own home. I took out my phone, thought about calling Michael, but stopped myself. He was at the construction site, hundreds of miles away, working himself to the bone to provide for his family. How could I tell him my suspicions when I didn't have any concrete proof yet? If I was wrong, I would hurt my son. I would shatter the happiness he had worked so hard to build. But if I was right, I didn't dare think about what came next. The idea of a fall down the stairs made me shudder. I had lived a long time. I had overcome many hardships, but I had never felt as helpless as I did in that moment. I stood up, determined to find the truth. I wasn't going to let Amelia manipulate my family. I wasn't going to let Leo live in fear. And I wasn't going to let Michael remain blind to the deceit. It was a weekend morning. The sun filtered weakly through the curtains, painting faint rays of light on the floor. The house was strangely quiet. The only sound was the chirping of sparrows in the yard. Amelia had just taken Leo to his painting class. She left in a hurry, bag in hand, muttering something about having to run some errands. When the iron gate clicked shut, I stood in the living room, feeling as if the entire world had shrunk to just me and the secrets that were about to be revealed. At 70 years old, I never thought I'd have to face moments like this. Moments where every heartbeat brings a deep sense of dread. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. It was the perfect opportunity, with the house empty. I had to do something. I had to find out what that dark blue folder really contained. Leo's whisper about the fall down the stairs and Amelia's anxious look from the day before still haunted me, like a shadow clinging to my mind. Using the excuse that I needed to clean Michael in Amelia's room, I went upstairs, each step feeling heavy, as if I were entering a danger zone. Their room smelled of a strong, cloying perfume, the one Amelia always wore, a scent so sweet it was suffocating. There were clothes thrown on a chair. Some of her dresses hung carelessly from a hook, and Michael's sneakers were tossed on the floor. I started dusting the table, the bookshelf, trying to make everything seem normal. But my hands were shaking, not from fatigue, but from fear. Fear of finding something I didn't want to believe was true. While cleaning an old wooden bureau by the window, I noticed the bottom drawer was slightly ajar, as if someone had closed it in a hurry without locking it. My heart started to pound, and I felt a cold sweat on my forehead, even though the room was cool. I opened the drawer very slowly so as not to make a sound. Inside, the dark blue folder lay silently, like a sleeping monster. I picked it up, trembling, feeling as if I were holding a bomb about to go off. I placed it on the bed, looking around to make sure no one would suddenly appear. I opened the first page, and instantly, I felt the air catch in my throat. It wasn't the house papers in Michael's name, as Amelia had said. It was a life insurance contract with my name, Mary Elena Garcia, printed clearly as the insured person. The sole beneficiary, Amelia. Not Michael, not Leo, but Amelia. My blood ran cold. I kept flipping, and the next page was indeed a transfer of rights for the house. But the new owner wasn't my son. It was her. The bright red stamps, a notary signature, and a date from just a few weeks ago left me breathless. There were more contracts inside the folder, and each page felt like a stab to the heart. My hands were shaking so much I almost dropped the papers. I couldn't believe it. Amelia, the woman I had cooked with, the one I had hugged when she cried because she missed Michael, was capable of planning something like this. A plan to take the house, to turn me into a number on an insurance policy. The idea of the fall down the stairs that Leo had overheard came back to my mind. clearer and more terrifying than ever. I forced myself to calm down, took out my phone, opened the camera, and started photographing every page, every stamp, every signature. With each click, I felt like I was saving deadly evidence, the pieces of a betrayal. Just then, the cell phone Amelia had left on the dresser vibrated. The screen lit up with a message from an unknown number. "Babe, how's it going? When is the old lady going to sign?" I jumped, almost dropping my own phone. That message was like a punch to the gut, confirming all my suspicions. Amelia wasn't acting alone. Someone who called her babe was behind all of this. I froze, not daring to touch her phone for fear she'd realize. Quickly, I put the folder back in its place, arranging everything exactly as it was, from the position of the drawer to the angle of the chair. I couldn't let Amelia know I had touched her things. I left the room on weak legs, but as I opened the door, I saw Leo standing there, his face flushed from running. "Grandma, class ended early," he exclaimed, but then he stopped and looked at me with concern. "What's wrong? Are you tired?" I tried to suppress my panic, forced a smile, and led him to the kitchen. "It's nothing, sweetie. I'm just a little tired." Are you hungry? Want me to make you some quesadillas?" I spoke, trying to sound cheerful, but inside I knew I was trembling with fear. Leo couldn't know what I had just discovered. He couldn't know that the mother he loved so much was plotting something terrible. That night, darkness enveloped the house like a heavy, suffocating blanket. I lay in my bed, my eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling. Unable to sleep, the ticking of the wall clock sounded rhythmically, each second feeling like a countdown, pushing me to face the terrible truths that were slowly coming to light. At 70, I was used to sleepless nights. But this time, it wasn't because of my age or my aching bones. This time, the turmoil in my heart was bigger than anything. A silent storm raging inside me that wouldn't let me rest. I sat up, put on a light sweater, and decided to go out to the backyard for some fresh air. Maybe the scent of the lemon tree would help calm me down. I opened the door stealthily, afraid of waking Leo, who was sleeping soundly in the next room. But just as I stepped into the hallway, a soft sound from the living room made me freeze. It was a whisper, so low it was almost lost in the darkness, but clear enough for me to recognize Amelia's voice. My heart pounded as if it wanted to leap out of my chest. I stopped, held my breath, and walked slowly toward the living room, hiding behind the thick curtain where the faint light of a street lamp seeped through. Through the crack in the curtain, I saw Amelia standing there, her shadow stretching across the wooden floor, the phone pressed to her ear. She was pacing, her steps light but full of tension, like a caged animal looking for a way out. Her voice was barely a murmur, but in the silence of the night, every one of her words stabbed my ears like a dagger. "Babe, I just need the old lady to sign, and that's it. After that, a fall down the stairs will take care of everything. It'll look like an accident. The insurance money will pay off all your debts." I bit my lip so hard it hurt, trying to stifle a sob that threatened to escape. Amelia's words were cold, sharp, as if she were talking about some ordinary plan and not a cruel conspiracy involving my life. Trembling, I took the phone out of my robe pocket and, with clumsy fingers, turned on the voice recorder. I knew I needed proof, something to show I wasn't imagining everything. The phone's small beep sounded and I quickly covered the screen with my hand, terrified the sound would alert her. Amelia let out a little laugh, a chilling sound that echoed in the darkness. "Then I'll file for divorce. Michael and the kid will have to leave. This house and me will be all yours," she said, with a confidence that chilled me to the bone, as if it were all already decided. I vaguely heard a man's voice on the other end of the line, deep and hurried, calling her, "My love!" "Hurry up. The debt collectors are putting a lot of pressure on me. You have to get the old lady to sign this week." I know. I'll take care of it," Amelia replied, her voice firm, without a hint of doubt. I stood there frozen, my heart about to explode. I clutched the phone tightly, sweat drenching my hand. Every word from Amelia was like a hammer blow to my mind, shattering what little was left of the trust I once had in her. Divorce Michael? Kick out Leo, the son she herself had brought into the world. And me? I was just an obstacle to be eliminated with an accident. I felt the world crumble at my feet. When the call ended, Amelia sighed and slumped onto the couch. She picked up the dark blue folder and caressed its hard cover as if it were a treasure. Her gaze was fixed on it, shining with a calculating satisfaction. I backed away silently, tiptoeing back to my room, each step weighing a ton. I closed the door, sat on the bed, and hid the phone under my pillow, but my heart was still racing. I hugged my chest, trying to take a deep breath, but there wasn't enough air to soothe the pain that was crushing me. The next morning, I got up early and made breakfast for Leo like I did every day, but my mind was elsewhere. What I had heard the night before, Amelia's cold voice, the cruel plan of the accident, and that obsessive "my love," kept replaying in my head like a horror soundtrack I couldn't stop. I knew I couldn't wait any longer. I had to act. I needed clearer proof to protect my family. Using the excuse of taking Leo to school early, I got him out of the house while Amelia was still asleep. Leo took my hand, skipping along the sidewalk, excitedly telling me about the drawing he was planning to do in class. "Grandma, today I'm going to draw you, my dad, and my mom under the lemon tree in the yard," he said with a smile, his eyes so clear. I smiled back, but inside, I felt an immense pain. How could I tell him that the mother he loved so much was plotting to destroy our family? I stroked his head, forcing a cheerful voice. "That sounds amazing, sweetie. I can't wait to see that drawing." But as soon as Leo went into his classroom, I turned around, feeling my steps carry the full weight of the truce. I took out my phone and called Connie, an old and trusted friend from my days at the market. Connie had helped me through the tough days when my husband passed away, and I knew she wouldn't refuse to help me this time. "Connie, I need your help," I said, my voice hoarse. "I suspect my daughter-in-law is up to something very shady. Do you know anyone who could investigate for me?" Connie was silent for a moment, then said in a low voice, "Mary, is this serious?" "Okay, I know a private investigator's agency. It's on a little hidden street in Midtown. The boss's name is Javier. He's very reliable. I'll send you the address." I hung up, feeling like a weight had been lifted. In my sweater pocket, I clutched a small piece of paper with the name Arturo, the only clue I had from the message on Amelia's phone. I got on the bus, sat in the back seat, and stared out the window with a knot in my stomach. The familiar city streets passed by, but today they felt strange, as if the whole city were Amelia's accomplice. When the bus stopped in Midtown, I got off and looked for the little street Connie had mentioned. The detective's office was hidden behind an old building, with a tiny sign that read, "Javier and Associates." I pushed the door open and went in, my heart pounding. Mr. Javier, a middle-aged man with salt and pepper hair and a sharp gaze, invited me to sit down. I briefly told him what I had discovered, the folder, the life insurance, and the recording from the previous night. I gave him the paper with the name Arturo. "Find everything you can on this man," I said, my voice trembling. "I suspect he's having an affair with my daughter-in-law and that they're planning something." "Very dangerous." Mr. Javier nodded, his expression serious. "I understand, Mrs. Garcia. We'll start immediately. I'll contact you in a few days." I left the office feeling like I had stepped into a battle I didn't know if I could win. That afternoon, when I got home, I saw Amelia's cell phone left on the dining room table. The screen lit up with a new message. "Babe, I'll meet you at our usual bar tonight. The Bull at 9. I immediately memorized the name of the place, my heart racing. The Bull, a small bar in the old part of town, a place I had heard Amelia mention several times with a strange enthusiasm. I pretended I hadn't seen anything, left the phone where it was, and went about my business. But in my mind, I had already decided that I would follow Amelia that night. When Amelia got back, she kept her radiant expression as if nothing was wrong. "Mom, I'm going out for a little while. I have plans with some friends. Can you watch Leo for me?" she said in her sweet voice. I nodded, trying to seem calm. "Of course, honey, you go. I'm here." But as she left, I felt a shiver run down my spine. I waited until Leo had dinner, read him a story, and tucked him into bed. When the house fell silent, I put on a coat, grabbed an old shawl, and slipped out, heading toward the Bull. The bar was in an alley with a flickering red neon sign and country music spilling out from inside. I stood on the corner hiding behind a parked car, trying to watch without being seen. Through the foggy glass, I saw Amelia sitting at the bar, across from a man. He was tall and thin, with shiny black hair and a rolled-up shirt that gave him the air of a bartender. It had to be Arturo. They were laughing and talking, Amelia's hand brushing against his, their eyes shining as if they shared a secret. I stood there in the dark, feeling my heart shrink, not just because of the betrayal to Michael, but because I knew that behind that smile, there was a cruel plan against me and my family. A few days later, Mr. Javier called me, his voice grave. "Mrs. Garcia, Arturo is a bartender at the Bull, the bar your daughter-in-law frequents. He owes a lot of money from football bets, and his creditors are pressuring him. We also have some photos of them." He arranged to meet me at a quiet cafe that night. When I arrived, Mr. Javier slid a manila envelope across the table. Inside were photos of Amelia and Arturo, kissing passionately in a dark alley near the bar. In another, they were sitting in a secluded corner, holding hands, with calculating looks on their faces. I looked at the photos, feeling like my world was caving in. Amelia, whom I once loved like a daughter, was now a stranger, a person conspiring to destroy my family. I put the envelope in my purse, thanked Mr. Javier, and left the cafe. It was late, but I didn't want to go home just yet. I walked down the street, letting the cold wind hit my face, trying to hold back the tears that wanted to fall. The next morning, the golden sun stretched over the familiar street, but my heart was as heavy as a dark cloud before a storm. I took my market basket, walking slowly, trying to maintain an appearance of normality. But in my head, the terrible pieces I had put together over the last few days, the folder, the recording, and the photos of Amelia hugging Arturo in that dark alley, swirled endlessly, reminding me that my family was on the edge of a cliff. At 70, I thought my remaining days would be quiet mornings with Leo and warm dinners when Michael came home. But now every step I took was like walking on thorns. At the market, the smell of tamales and the familiar bustle used to comfort me. But today, everything felt foreign. Rosa, the fruit vendor on the corner, saw me and smiled kindly. "Mary, what are you getting for little Leo today? You've been looking so worried lately," she said as she arranged some bright oranges. I nodded, trying to smile back, but then Rosa lowered her voice, as if sharing a secret. "Lately, I've seen your daughter-in-law Amelia with a young, unfamiliar guy over in the old neighborhood. He looks nothing like your son Michael. Do you know anything about it?" Her words were like a knife twisting in my heart. I just nodded, my voice dry. "Thanks, Rosa. I'll keep an eye out." But every one of her words was seared into my mind, another piece of evidence confirming my suspicions. I quickly bought some vegetables, a little meat, and left the market, my head spinning. Amelia wasn't just conspiring with Arturo. She was seeing him openly in our own neighborhood where everyone knew my family. Her audacity filled me with both anger and fear. Did she think I was some useless old woman, incapable of realizing what was happening? When I got home, I left the basket in the kitchen and collapsed into a chair, holding my head in my hands. I remembered Michael's calls, his tired voice always asking, "Mom, do you need anything at the house? I already sent you guys money." I remembered how Amelia always complained that the money wasn't enough, that it barely covered anything. Back then, I thought she was struggling to take care of the family, but now I realized it was all part of her act. I decided I had to check. I had to know where Michael's money was really going. I called Luis, an old acquaintance who worked at the bank. We had been neighbors for years, and I knew he wouldn't refuse to help me, even if it was a delicate matter. "Luis, I need a favor," I said in a low voice so Amelia wouldn't hear me from the other room. "Could you check my daughter-in-law, Amelia's account? I suspect something isn't right." Luis hesitated, his voice sounding worried. "Mary, that's not exactly easy to do. But since it's you, I'll see what I can do. This stays between us, nobody finds out." I nodded, even though he couldn't see me over the phone. "Thank you, Luis. I won't forget this." That afternoon, Luis called me back. His voice was a whisper, as if he were afraid someone might overhear. "Mary, I checked. Every month, Amelia transfers a good amount of money to an Arturo Morales. I don't know who he is, but the amount is shocking. Please, be very careful." I hung up, feeling the floor open up beneath me. So that was why Michael always complained that the money he sent was never enough, even though he was working himself to the bone. The money my son earned with the sweat of his brow wasn't for taking care of Leo. It wasn't for the family. It was going into the pocket of her lover, Arturo. As if to confirm all my suspicions, that very afternoon, Amelia knocked on my bedroom door. She came in with an apologetic look, wringing her hands as if trying to contain her nervousness. "Mom," she said, in a sweet voice that now sounded completely fake to me, "I'm a little short on money for Leo's tuition. What Michael sent this time wasn't enough. Could you lend me some?" I looked her straight in the eye, searching for a trace of sincerity, but all I saw was the flicker of a lie. I took out my coin purse, pulled out a few bills, and gave them to her, my heart in pieces. I knew that money wouldn't make it to Leo's school. It would end up in Arturo's hands to pay off his gambling debts. "Thank you so much, Mom," Amelia said, with a radiant but cold smile. She turned and I heard her bedroom door close with a dry click. I sat there, clutching the edge of the table, feeling my heart clench. How could I keep living under the same roof with this woman when every word, every smile was a lie? That night, Michael video called. His face appeared on the screen, tired but forcing a smile when he saw Leo. "Champ, how was school? Were you good for Grandma?" he asked, his voice full of love. Leo smiled, telling him about his drawing and his games at school. Then Michael turned to me. "Mom, I always send extra money so Amelia can take care of everything. You and the boy aren't missing anything, are you?" I glanced at Amelia, who was in the kitchen at that moment, pretending to be busy washing dishes. I felt a lump in my throat, like a stone was stuck there. I wanted to scream, to tell Michael that his wife was cheating on him, that she was stealing his money to support her lover. But I couldn't. Not yet. Not without all the proof to make him believe me. "Yes, everything's fine, son," I replied, my voice weak, trying to hide my pain. Michael nodded with a look of trust. "Take care, Mom. I'll be back soon." When the call ended, Amelia came out of the kitchen silently, went into her room and slammed the door. Seeing her back, I felt a flame of anger burn inside me, but at the same time, a deep fear. Amelia wasn't just betraying Michael. She was dragging the whole family into a dangerous swamp. The next morning, the pale sun came through the window, but it wasn't enough to dispel the chill I felt in my soul. I was sitting in my room, a cup of now cold mint tea in my hands, trying to stay calm in the face of everything that was happening. Suddenly, the door flew open and Amelia walked in, holding the dark blue folder and a pen. Her smile was sickeningly sweet, but I saw the urgency behind her eyes. "Mom," she said, her voice soft but full of intent. "Michael already left me in charge of everything. Just sign it now. There's no need to wait for him to come back. This needs to be resolved as soon as possible." Her words sounded rehearsed, as if she had practiced them dozens of times. She placed the folder on the coffee table, with the pen next to it, the tip pointing at me like a silent invitation to act. I looked at her, trying to keep a calm expression, but inside, anger and fear were fighting a fierce battle. Leo's whisper about the fall down the stairs and the recording from the other night echoed in my head like a warning I couldn't ignore. I nodded, feigning tiredness. "Yes, let me finish up my things, and then I'll sign, honey." Amelia's face lit up, her eyes shining as if she had won a small battle. She smiled and said quickly, "Of course, Mom, take your time. But remember that Michael really needs these papers." She left the room, but not before leaving the folder on the table, a reminder that she wouldn't give up easily. I got up, put on a light sweater, and used the excuse of going to visit an old friend. "I'll be right back, honey," I said as I passed Amelia in the living room. She nodded, her voice cheerful. "Don't be long so you can sign the papers." I smiled back, but as I walked out the gate, my heart felt heavy. I didn't go anywhere. Instead, I took a walk around the neighborhood, through the familiar streets where I once held Michael's hand when he was a boy, where Leo ran every afternoon. But today, everything seemed different, as if the whole neighborhood were Amelia's accomplice. I stopped on a hidden corner near the house, where I could see the living room window without being seen. Through the curtain, I saw Amelia pacing back and forth, phone in hand, visibly tense. She dialed a number and I silently took out my phone and activated the voice recorder. My heart was pounding and a cold sweat ran down my forehead despite the cool morning breeze. When the other side answered, Amelia lowered her voice, but in the silence, I heard every word. "Don't worry, the old lady is about to sign. As soon as I have the papers in my hand, we'll be out of debt. Arturo, don't worry anymore." I bit my lip, trying to hold my ragged breath. Amelia continued with a chilling confidence. "Just a few more days and I'll convince her. Then everything will be fine, my love." I vaguely heard Arturo's voice on the other end, deep and hurried. "Hurry up, Amelia, the collectors can't wait any longer." Amelia let out a little laugh, a cold sound that sent a shiver down my spine. "I know, trust me," she replied and hung up. She leaned back on the couch, letting out a sigh of relief, a smile of satisfaction and calculation spreading across her face. She picked up the folder and caressed it as if it were her ticket to a new life. I turned off the recorder, my hands shaking so much I almost dropped the phone. This recording, along with the previous evidence, was another sharp dagger piercing through Amelia's veil of lies. But at the same time, it made me realize that my time was running out. Amelia wasn't just pressuring me to sign. She was accelerating her plan. I turned and walked quickly down the sidewalk, letting the cold wind cool the anger and fear burning inside me. The phone in my sweater pocket was still warm, reminding me that I held a powerful but also very dangerous weapon in my hands. When I got home, I saw Leo playing with a small ball in the yard. He ran to me and hugged me. "Grandma, where were you?" "I was waiting for you," he said. I knelt down, stroked his head and forced a smile. "I went to see a friend, sweetie." "Were you a good boy?" Leo nodded and took my hand, leading me to the kitchen, excitedly telling me about his game. But looking into his clear eyes, I couldn't help but think about what Amelia had said in the recording. Her words were like a knife twisting in my heart. Leo, my little grandson, didn't deserve to suffer his mother's betrayal. Amelia appeared at the kitchen door, still wearing that fake smile. "You're back, Mom. Aren't you tired? I'll make you some tea," she said, her voice as sweet as if nothing had happened. I nodded and replied curtly, "Thanks, honey, but I'm not thirsty." I turned away, avoiding her gaze, afraid she would see the suspicion in my eyes. I knew I had to keep playing the part of a clueless old woman so Amelia wouldn't suspect that I already knew too much. That night, my small room was lit by the dim light of the table lamp. I sat alone, my bony hands trembling as I laid out before me the pieces of the cruel truth I had carefully gathered over the last few days. On the table were the photos of the life insurance policy in my name, the deed transfer for the house to Amelia, the 2 recordings of her guilty whispers to Arturo, the photos of them embracing in the dark alley, the detective's report on Arturo's massive debt, and the bank statements showing how Michael's money ended up in his lover's pocket. Each piece was a stab, but also a bullet in the war I had to fight to protect my family. Carefully, I put everything into a large manila envelope. My hands were shaking so much, I had to stop several times to take a deep breath. At 70, I never thought I would have to do something like this. Confront the betrayal of a loved one, gather evidence like a detective, and prepare to bring it all to light. But every time I thought of Leo, with his clear eyes and innocent smile, or of Michael working himself to the bone to support his family, I knew I couldn't stop. I sealed the envelope, hid it in a locked drawer and sank into my chair, feeling a deep exhaustion throughout my body. The next morning I woke up earlier than usual. I made breakfast for Leo, trying to keep a calm expression when he came running down to the kitchen, chattering nonstop about his painting class. "Grandma, today I'm going to draw the whole family under the lemon tree," he said excitedly. I stroked his head and smiled. "I can't wait to see it, sweetie." But as soon as Leo went out to play in the yard, I quietly took the envelope, put on my sweater, and left the house. I didn't tell Amelia where I was going. Just left a note. Went to the market for a moment. I didn't go to the market. Instead, I took a bus to the city courthouse, my heart pounding in my chest. The imposing building with its cold stone walls made me feel small, but I walked in, clutching the envelope tightly. At the reception desk, a middle-aged clerk with a serious expression helped me. "I want to file a report," I said, my voice trembling but firm. I handed him the envelope, briefly explaining Amelia and Arturo's conspiracy. The clerk reviewed the documents, his expression growing more and more grim. "Mrs. Garcia, these are very serious accusations. We will pass this file to the investigation department immediately," he said in a deep voice. I nodded, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders, but at the same time, a new worry arose. What would happen when Amelia found out I had reported her? 2 days later, as we were having dinner, the doorbell rang. The sharp sound broke the calm, making Leo jump and drop his spoon. I got up, opened the door, and was met by 2 uniformed police officers with stern faces. "We need to speak with Mrs. Amelia Garcia," one of them said, holding a warrant. Amelia shot up from her chair, her face pale and her hands trembling. What's going on?" she stammered, terrified. The officer replied, his voice firm. "We have a complaint filed against you and sufficient evidence. Please accompany us to the station to cooperate with the investigation." Leo, frightened, clung to me tightly, his little hands gripping my blouse. "Grandma, what's happening to my mom?" he whispered, his eyes filled with tears. I hugged him, trying to make my voice sound calm. "It's nothing, sweetie. Your grandma's here." But inside, I knew everything had changed forever. Michael, who had just gotten back from the construction site the night before, stood frozen looking at his wife in disbelief. "Amelia, what's going on?" he asked, his voice breaking. Amelia barely mumbled, avoiding his gaze. It's nothing, my love. It must be a mistake." But as the police led her away, I saw the panic in her eyes like a cornered animal. The house suddenly plunged into a terrifying silence. Leo buried his head in my lap, sobbing. I held him tightly, feeling his small body tremble, and in that moment I felt my heart break into 1,000 pieces. He didn't deserve to witness this. He didn't deserve to see his mother being taken away by the police. Michael remained standing, covering his face, as if he couldn't believe what had just happened. I wanted to say something to comfort him, but I felt a lump in my throat that wouldn't let me speak. When the police left, I sat down, took out my phone, and called Michael, even though he was in the next room. I knew he needed time, but I couldn't leave him drowning in confusion. "Son," I said, my voice choked, "the police just took Amelia. There are many things I can't hide from you anymore. I've been gathering evidence for months. Amelia hasn't been honest with us." Michael was stunned, his voice trembling on the other end of the line. "What are you saying, Mom? Amelia arrested? Why?" I didn't give him all the details, just said briefly, "There's a plot involving the house and an insurance policy. I've already given all the evidence to the court. Come to my room, I'll show you everything." Michael shouted, his voice full of pain. "This can't be! Amelia is my wife, Leo's mother. It has to be a mistake." I just replied, "Come here. I'm going to show you the truth." 2 days later, Michael came home, his face gaunt and his eyes red from lack of sleep. Leo ran to hug him, but Michael barely stroked his hair and then looked at me with a mixture of doubt and pain. "Mom, please tell me what's happening," he begged. Silently, I placed the large envelope in front of him. Michael opened it, trembling, flipped through each page, looked at each photo, and when I played the recording, Amelia's voice came through, cold and clear. "I just need the old lady to sign and that's it. After that, a fall down the stairs will take care of everything." Michael's face went white as a sheet. He collapsed into the chair, covering his face. "No, it can't be. Amelia," he mumbled before letting his head fall onto the table, sobbing uncontrollably. I sat next to him, placed a hand on his shoulder, and let him cry. Leo stood in a corner, not fully understanding but feeling the heaviness in the room. He ran to me, clung to my blouse, his eyes filled with tears. I hugged him and I hugged Michael, and in that moment, I knew that even though the storm had passed, the wounds Amelia had left behind would not heal easily. It was Monday morning. The city sky was gray, as if reflecting the pain in my heart. I got up early, preparing for a day I knew would change everything. Michael stood in front of the mirror, fixing a worn collared shirt, his eyes red from sleepless nights. "Mom, I still can't believe it," he said, his voice hoarse, as if trying to convince himself it was all a nightmare. I put my hand on his shoulder and said softly, "Son, today we're going to face the truth. Even if it hurts, we have to do it." Michael nodded, but his gaze was distant, like someone who has lost their way. I decided to leave Leo with Rosa, our trusted neighbor. The boy didn't need to witness that scene. He didn't need to see his mother in the defendant's box. "Grandma, where are you and Dad going today?" Leo asked, hugging his teddy bear. I knelt down and stroked his head. "We're going to do something important, sweetie. Stay with Rosa and be a good boy." Leo nodded, but I saw the worry in his eyes, as if he could feel the tension in the air. I hugged him tight, holding back tears, and left the house, clutching my purse, which contained the painful memories of the past few months. At the courthouse, the cold, solemn atmosphere sent a chill down my spine. Michael sat next to me, gripping the armrest of the chair as if it were his last lifeline. When the courtroom door opened, they brought Amelia in. Her face was gaunt. Her hastily tied-up hair looked unkempt. She wore a simple dress with no trace of her former radiance. Next to her was Arturo in handcuffs, his gaze shifty, avoiding everyone. Seeing them standing there stirred a mix of anger and pain in me. They were the people who had conspired to destroy my family, but at the same time, Amelia had been part of that family. She had been someone I loved like a daughter. The prosecutor, a middle-aged woman with a sharp voice, began to present the case. One by one, she laid out the evidence: the copy of the life insurance policy in my name, the deed transferred to Amelia, the recordings of her guilty whispers, the photos of her and Arturo in the dark alley, and the financial report of the transfers Amelia made to Arturo. Each piece of evidence was like a hammer blow, demolishing the wall of lies Amelia had built. Michael, next to me, was visibly shaking, his breathing ragged. I took his hand and squeezed it, trying to give him some strength. When the prosecutor played the recording, Amelia's voice echoed cold and clear. "I just need the old lady to sign, and that's it. After that, a fall down the stairs will take care of everything." Michael shot up, his face pale, his voice breaking. "Amelia, why? Why did you do this to us?" The entire room fell silent. The only sound was Michael's choked sob. Amelia lowered her head, her shoulders trembling, but she didn't answer. After a long silence, she looked up, her voice filled with bitterness. "Because you were always working. You never really cared about me. Arturo is different. He makes me feel loved." Her words were like a stab to my heart. I looked at Michael and saw his face contorted with pain. The prosecutor continued, her voice icy. "And what about the plan to fake a fall down the stairs and collect the insurance?" "Miss Garcia, how do you explain that?" Amelia lowered her head again, not responding. Suddenly Arturo spoke, his voice panicked, trying to shift the blame. "It was my idea. I needed the money to pay my debts, but she's the one who agreed to it and planned everything." He looked at Amelia with rage, as if blaming her for dragging him into this mess. I couldn't hold back any longer. I stood up, my voice hoarse with emotion. "And what about Leo? What did the boy ever do to you that you wanted to get rid of him?" Amelia looked up, her eyes as cold as ice without a shred of remorse. "Arturo doesn't like kids. I wasn't going to lose him over Leo." That sentence was the final stab, straight to my heart and Michael's. Murmurs filled the room. Michael broke down, crying like an abandoned child. I squeezed his hand and pulled him back to his seat, but I myself felt my legs shaking on the verge of collapsing. The judge banged the gavel, his voice resonating, severe and final. "Miss Amelia Garcia and Mr. Arturo Morales are found guilty of conspiracy to commit murder and fraud. The court will issue a sentence after reviewing the circumstances." Amelia lowered her head. Arturo muttered something, but I didn't care anymore. I was only looking at Michael, watching my son nearly faint. I helped him out into the hallway and let him collapse onto my shoulder, crying. "Mom, why?" He sobbed, his voice broken. I said nothing, just held my son tightly, feeling his hot tears soak my blouse. When we left the courthouse, it had started to rain. The cold drops fell, as if trying to wash away the pain we had just endured. Michael walked beside me in silence, his gaze lost. I wanted to say something to comfort him, but there was a lump in my throat. How could I ease the pain of someone who had just lost the world they believed in? When we got home, Rosa was playing with Leo in the yard. The boy ran to me and hugged me. "Grandma, you're back. Where's my mom?" I knelt down, held him, and fought back tears. "Mom, had to go away for a while, sweetie. But your dad and I are here, don't you worry." Leo nodded, but I saw the confusion in his eyes. Michael stood there looking at Leo and then turned away, as if he didn't want the boy to see his tears. A few months after the trial, when Amelia and Arturo officially received their prison sentences, I felt as if a heavy door to the past had closed. The old house, full of memories, but also stained with pain, was no longer a place where we could stay. Michael, Leo, and I decided to move to a smaller apartment in a quiet neighborhood near Leo's school. The apartment wasn't as big as the old house, but its huge windows let the sun in every morning, filling it with light and warmth. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe, as if the weight on my shoulders had been lifted. Every morning I took Leo by the hand for a walk in the nearby park. The boy would skip along the gravel path, chattering non-stop about his games at school. His crystal-clear laughter echoed, no longer holding the trembling fear of those days when he whispered his mother's terrible words to me. I would look at Leo, see his clear eyes, and my heart would feel lighter. "Grandma, I saw a really big butterfly today," he'd exclaim, pointing at some flowers. I'd smile and squeeze his hand a little tighter. "Really? You have to show me next time." Those simple moments were the medicine I needed to heal the wounds Amelia had left. Michael changed, too. He requested a transfer to the city office, so he no longer had to travel far away for work. I saw my son was calmer. There were no more rushed midnight calls or faces gaunt with exhaustion. Every afternoon, Michael would pick Leo up from school, and they'd come home laughing the whole way. Dinners became precious moments. The three of us sitting around the table, eating the simple dishes I prepared, talking about small things. Michael no longer mentioned Amelia, but I knew the pain was still there, hidden in his eyes. I didn't press him to talk. I just stood by his side in silence, as I always had since he was a child. One afternoon, while I was chopping vegetables in the kitchen, Michael came in with a cup of coffee. He watched me for a moment and then said quietly, "Mom, from now on, I'm not going to let anything happen to you or Leo ever again." His voice was serious, but full of determination. I stopped chopping and turned to look at him. His face no longer held the shocked expression from the days of the trial. Instead, there was a firmness I had never seen in him before. I smiled, feeling a great sense of relief. "I know, son. I trust you." Michael came over and gave me a tight hug, and in that moment, I felt that we had both found each other again after the storm. As for me, I decided not to let the sad days trap me. I joined a senior club in the neighborhood, where new friends taught me to play the guitar and to dance. The first time I held the guitar, my fingers were clumsy, and the out-of-tune notes made the whole group laugh. "Mary, you play like a true artist," joked Connie, my old friend. I laughed, feeling a simple joy I had forgotten. The dances, the jokes, and the new friends made me realize that even at 70, life still had so much to offer. Every night, Leo would sit beside me excitedly, tapping his feet to the rhythm as I clumsily played the guitar. He'd laugh his head off every time I hit a wrong note and then hug me. "Grandma, you play so beautifully." Michael would often stand in the doorway, watching us in silence, and in his gaze, after so many days of sadness, peace finally shone. Once he took out his phone and recorded the scene of Leo and me laughing and then said, "Mom, I'm going to keep this video forever, so that when Leo grows up, He'll remember how much you loved him." His words moved me to tears, but I just smiled and waved my hand. "Oh, don't make this old woman cry, son." One Sunday morning, the three of us decided to go to Union Station, but this time it wasn't to see anyone off. We took a train for a picnic in the countryside, where green pastures stretched as far as the eye could see. Leo sat by the window, his eyes sparkling, pointing at the cows grazing and the hills in the distance. "Grandma, Dad, look!" He'd shout, his laughter echoing through the train car. Michael, sitting across from us, smiled as he watched his son and gently placed his hand on my shoulder. "Mom, thank you for everything," he said quietly but sincerely. I just nodded, saying nothing but with a heart full of warmth. Sitting on the train, watching the landscape pass by, I thought about everything we had been through. Amelia's betrayal, the sleepless nights of anguish, the days of fighting to protect my family. It all seemed like a distant nightmare now. From the ashes of that betrayal, our small family had found a way to build a new future, slowly but on a firm foundation. I looked at Michael and saw that his face was no longer so gaunt, that his smile was now genuine. I looked at Leo, who was scribbling on a piece of paper while singing a children's song. And I knew that although we had lost a lot, the most valuable thing was still here. We had each other. After everything that happened, I truly want to share with everyone that in life, even the people we trust the most can betray us. But the truth can never stay hidden forever. Blind trust makes us vulnerable, while clarity, courage, and perseverance in seeking the truth are what protect us and those we love. I understood that family ties are not always synonymous with sincerity, and that sometimes the wounds that come from one's own family are the ones that hurt the most. But above all, if we stand firm in defending what is right, if we hold on to the love for our children and grandchildren, then even from the ruins, we can rebuild a new home, a place where peace and true trust reign. The story you've just heard has had names and locations changed to protect the identities of those involved. We don't tell this to judge, but in the hope that someone will listen and stop to reflect. How many mothers are suffering in silence within their own homes? I truly wonder. If you were in my place, what would you do? Would you choose to stay silent to keep the peace? Or would you dare to face it all to reclaim your voice? I want to know your opinion, because every story is like a candle that can light the way for someone else. God always blesses, and I'm convinced that bravery leads us to better days. Meanwhile, on the end screen, I'm leaving you two of the channel's most beloved stories. I'm sure they will surprise you. Thank you for staying with me until this moment.